Serious. What is the most successful lie in history? One that we'll never know was a lie. I acknowledge that I have read and agree to the above terms and conditions. That fat is harmful to your diet. That was just false information. And by trying to replace fats with sugar, obesity became an epidemic. In the 90s, kids spread the rumor that Marilyn Manson had a rib removed so he could suck his OWNDCK. We spread this rumor across the entire country without the use of cell phones or the internet. Iceland and Greenland. Frank Abagnale Jr., the inspiration for Catch Me If You Can, apparently wasn't as big of a con man that the movie leads you to believe. He conned people into thinking he was a bigger con man than he actually was. That diamonds are valuable. Made one family really rich though lol. Santa Claus. Milk doesn't increase bone strength. Carrots don't improve eyesight. That's a WW2 myth. Trojan horse comes to mind. Have you ever heard of a radar detector? How about a radar detector, which the police use to see if you have a detector? Ever wonder how they work? Well, every modern radio works the same way. It's called a superheterodyne. Basically, there's a tiny radio transmitter in your receiver. That signal is mixed with the one from the antenna, and the result is what your receiver tunes to. It's very clever because the output of the two mixed signals is always the same frequency, so it makes the tuner way easier to build. The problem is that sometimes the tiny transmitter is poorly shielded and some of it leaks back out the antenna. If you know what that intermediate frequency is, you can listen for it. Pesto, radar, detector. In 1942, RAF planes were using radar to look for German submarines leaving port in France. The Germans figured this out in August and started putting a radar detector on their subs, the Metox. By October, most of the fleet had it, and the RAF pilots were returning with stories about how the U-boats would always dive as soon as they turned to attack. The timing could not be more perfect. Earlier, two grad students had come up with a new device called the magnetron that produced very strong radio signals from a box the size of a bread box. And the signal was really short, about 10 centimeters, whereas their older radars were 150. The first set started arriving just in time for the U-boat campaign to start up again in spring when the weather got better. By March, it was clear to the Germans something was up. Their boats were getting sunk en masse again, and the ones that escaped attack said there was absolutely no warning on their detectors. They tried everything to detect the new signal, but they couldn't find it. Literally, they were missing one extremely important bit of electronics, the crystal detector, and simply couldn't hear the signals no matter how hard they tried. And now the lie. Knowing something was up, U-boats were on high alert all the time. One got lucky and shot down its attacker, and captured the crew. During interrogation, they asked why they could no longer detect the radar. The pilot told them they no longer used it. They had a receiver for the German radar detector's intermediate frequency, and under perfect conditions they could pick it up 90 miles away. They only turned on the radar at the last minute for range measurements so they knew when to drop the depth charges. The Germans didn't believe him, but it was technically possible. So they tried it in the lab, and sure enough they could indeed detect the Metox. So they put it on a plane and detected one of their boats 60 miles away. Utter panic. Orders were sent out to all boats, turn off Metox. By the end of June, the U-boat fleet was on the bottom of the ocean. The combination of the new radars, Huff-Duff, new frigates dedicated to the task, and the lack of any detectors on the U-boats that made even the old radars work again all arrived within 2 months, and that was that. Apparently the pilot made the whole thing up on his own. This little white lie helped open the Atlantic to the convoys of 1943 that led to the end of Italy's involvement and ultimately D-Day. It's not you, it's me. Laws are designed to ensure that everyone is treated fairly and equally. That lobbying isn't just bribery with extra steps. That black people and watermelon are racist stereotypes. The truth is that when the slaves were freed, they grew and sold watermelon as a way to earn money to feed, clothe, and house themselves. The watermelon was actually a symbol of freedom and self-reliance for newly freed slaves. What happened was that the former slave owners saw this and started a propaganda campaign to turn white people away from buying food, as they called it. It's probably one of the earliest examples of the press manipulating the truth for its owners. This is where the big lips and eating like animals pictures came from. When black people started selling chickens, the same thing happened, only this time it came in movie form. The black people and fired chicken thing started in Birth of a Nation, the racist as UCKKKK movie. What should be symbols of freedom and self-reliance to a people struggling after centuries of slavery were twisted into symbols of shame. So much so that 100 years later they are both still seen with negative connections. I before E except after C unless your foreign neighbor Keith offers you 8 counterfeit slaves from feisty caffeinated weightlifters. Weird. For me it's that turning in the light in the car is illegal. Spoiler alert, it isn't. When the Allies tricked Germany into thinking D-Day was happening at other locations which weakened their defenses at the primary landing points. You need to buy a stone on a ring to show some form of dedication. Religion. Fat is bad for you, sugar is okay. Have 11 servings of bread per day. Vaccines causing autism. Bush claiming that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. The harder you work, the more you will get paid. The highest paying position in a company requires no work at all. No matter how hard you work, you can never get there. We are using mass surveillance to help catch terrorists. That hard work alone will bring you success, wealth. What are some unsettling facts about you? My Enos has been through some exceptionally rough times recently. In 2017, I was bitten on the ick by a red backspider and required hospital treatment. It was swollen to 4 times its normal size. In 2019, I tore my foreskin badly during X and required an emergency circumcision. In 2021, I crushed my Enos between 2 50 kg truck batteries whilst loading them onto a pallet, requiring 8 stitches. It's now 2023 and I'm dreading the remainder of the year. Father died of cancer in his early 40s. I decided to live a healthy life and avoid cancer at all costs. My family were devastated by him dying so young. A lot of my life has been shaped by my father's death. Just got diagnosed with stage 4 invasive ductal carcinoma in June. I'm 27 years old. I like to pretend I'm on a talk show when I'm alone. And then proceed to have these interviews with myself, where I'm saying the most insightful hit based on any one of my life experiences. Edit. It's my first ever award, people. Thank you, stranger heart. Intrusive thoughts. But I am not alone there. My brain is lopsided. They aren't sure if there was an injury or if I was born with it. I'm pretty sure I'm insane and just acting normal. I am more than willing to eat one chip and then close the bag. I have a tendency to self-isolate, and it's damaged very long-term friendships because people don't understand that it's not them, it's me, and that I really mean no harm or have any ill feelings towards them. I just kinda want to recede into my own mind. I feel really bad about it and keep telling myself to reach out, but I don't. IRL, I am looked to as a super responsible and reliable person and reasonable. But most of the time I avoid responsibility. I feel like I phone everything in at the last second. I have very dark and violent thoughts about what Toto about people before I summon the strength to act. Reasonable. I was raped when I was 6 to 7 years old. That made me not believe in God, so yeah. Good thing Reddit is anonymous, I can share such stuff. But yeah, never told this to anyone before. I'm a guy before anyone jumps in my DMs for sympathy. Lol. I have no real sympathy. I know that someone is sad but don't care. I still try to act like I care and I help them. But I don't feel anything. Edit. This is not a very big problem in my life. It's just a little thing I would not tell anyone publicly. Edit 2. I might delete this, the big number of people. Makes me super uncomfortable. Thanks for all support, but I am actually totally okay with my situation. I realize that it's hard to explain myself in just one comment. Now give your upvote or what this is to someone who deserves it. Thanks. I have no issue cutting anyone off, doesn't matter to me if it's family or friends. I can without getting hard. I'm actually just 10 squirrels in a trench coat. Wasn't feeling well the other day and had that weird intrusive thought, what if I'm riddled with incurable cancer? Intrusive thoughts are whatever. The unsettling part was that my brain said, oh thank God, you finally have an out that people won't be mad at you for. Which actor/actress nailed their role so well that no one else will be able to live up to their performance? Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean. Bryan Cranston, Walter White. I think it will be very hard for anyone to buy another adult actor as Indiana Jones. It isn't as if Harrison Ford's acting is spectacular or anything. He just is Indiana Jones for most people. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn. He didn't play Aragorn, he was Aragorn. Christoph Waltz as Hans Landa. Anthony Starr as Homelander in The Boys. Sir Patrick Stewart as Captain Picard. Julie Andrews as Maria in The Sound of Music. Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall and Imelda Staunton as Umbridge. Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown. Peter Dinklage as Tyrion Lannister. They can never make the books without him as Tyrion. Alan Rickman as Snape. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. James Gandolfini, The Sopranos. Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. Robin Williams as the Genie in Aladdin. Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley. Jack Gleeson as Prince Joffrey in Game of Thrones. I absolutely loathed the character. It took me a while to realize that was in part because of Gleeson's superb acting.